and she's not here. And thanks again to Wes and Michael and everybody at the Stone Quarry for their help with tonight. Oh, and when you leave here for the break, pick up your trash. It was a mess last night. Now I'll hand this stage over to Zach.
Thank you so much. Just incredibly professional, and I'm really... The trash comment seemed rude, but the rest of it was awesome. And the piracy was a little foreboding. So, I just want to say thanks a ton for everyone to come out tonight. I really, Watchmen has a special place in my heart for a lot of reasons. Not to, first of all, I love the graphic novel, as you know, it's probably pretty apparent from the movie. You know, because I guess when you make a movie this way, people would be like, this doesn't seem that hard because you just film the pictures that people drew. So, like, what did you do exactly? What was your part? So you just said, dude, film the thing that, and you guys say see those bubbles? Say those words. And whatever bubble is pointing to the guy, that's who says that word. So making a movie is super easy. Just do that. No. But again, so I just want to take a second and say thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank Vero for sponsoring the event, and thanks, of course, to ArtCenter. And yeah, I love this place, and want to make this. I mean, the theater could really be a bit better, I think. Not to be rude, but it just could. So last night I told a story that when I came here to school, if you wanted to make a period piece about 1986, you could shoot it in here because it looks exactly the same. And it's the same equipment in the projection booth, so you could do a whole thing where the guy goes in there and they're like, oh look, it's this old projection booth. So that would be cool. So someone who wants to do that could hurry up and film that. Easier than a graphic novel. But I'm hoping that, you know, this kind of awareness and, you know, events like this, and we'll continue to do them, we can raise enough money to put a theater, make this theater into like a world-class venue that the students coming to school here will be able to show their movies in a place that will blow their minds, and hopefully they can inspire them to produce films that, you know, will be worthy of the space. And so that's what I'm hoping, and that's what you guys are all part of now. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess now we'll just check out this motion picture, and then we'll talk about it after. We're gonna watch the movie, and then there's like how long is the? 45 minutes of we're gonna enjoy some beverages and some food, and then we're gonna come back and do a little panel, and I have a really great guests that are gonna talk about the movie, and they all know a lot about it, so it'll be really fun. All right, so thanks guys, we're gonna enjoy the movie, and I'll talk to you guys after.
Zack Snyder, I believe you've heard of him. He is an ArtCenter alum. We are so proud of that. He is a director, he is a writer, he is a producer. He's awesome. I hear his voice. This is actually a visionary filmmaker, and if you don't believe me, just think back on what you just sat through for the last 3 hours. It's freaking great. So, Zach, please come out and join me. Yeah, okay. Good call. Good call. Yeah. really feel? Come on. Okay, I'd like to introduce somebody else here who...
Yeah.
Yes. His name is Jackie Earl Haley. His name is ridiculous. We are not worthy. We are not worthy. All right, do I need to tell you this? That this guy has been in Watchmen. He was in Little Children. He was in Nightmare on Elm Street. He's in Shutter Island. He's been in so many great movies, and it is an honor to have him here. He came up from Texas. Jackie, welcome. Thank you. Thanks for All right, the hits keep coming. There's a cinematographer that I'm particularly fond of. He went to ArtCenter. The guy is freaking amazing. His name is Larry Fong. Yeah! All right. Anywhere you want, man. Anywhere you want. You know the man, you know the legend. Have some water. This guy, I mean, I could be here all night talking about what he's done. So he worked with Zack on a few pictures you might have heard of: 300, Sucker Punch, Batman vs. Superman, Watchmen, and many, many others. Love the work, and he's an ArtCenter alum. We are so proud of that, and thank you so much for making the scene. So, it's keep going here. There's a man named Bill Hoy. He's a fabulous editor. He is here tonight. Zack on Dawn of the Dead, 300, Sucker Punch. He's also worked on such fabulous movies as War of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. This guy is really good at what he does, and we are honored to have him here tonight. Thank you very much, Bill, for making it. So, and we're rounding out this stellar cast with a producer, Deborah Snyder. What? You may have heard of her. There we go. Awesome. She's talented. She's prolific. She's awesome. She started in the advertising world and then moved over. She was an agency producer, transitioned to feature films. She's worked on this movie. She's worked on 300, Sucker Punch, Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Wonder Woman, many more. Upcoming in production in post as she is co-president with her worst half, how do you say that? I don't know. Yeah, something like that, at Stone Quarry. So welcome, Deborah. It is awesome to have you here. She is actually Wonder Woman. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to get started, ask everybody questions, and then we really want to get it opened up to you guys. So think of some great questions to say. We also want to say hello to the interwebs.
We're on the worldwide interweb.
Hi, Vero.
Hi, Vero. We love them. This is being live streamed, and it's live streamed 360, so they can see us, they can see you, they can move around. It's pretty awesome. Welcome, interwebs. Zach, I got a question for you. And
what?
Being redundant, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked last night because we are here to see and celebrate your director's cuts.
Oh, yeah.
And they differ in varying degrees. This one differs in some big degrees. And so tell us a little bit about your intentions with this cut, what you wanted to bring to it with theme, story, characters, pacing, etc. Because this cut is just extraordinary.
Okay, hey, thanks. First of all, thanks everyone for coming out. Really amazing to have you guys here. This is a really cool cause, trying to make this theater, better, than it is.
Please, God.
It doesn't seem hard to make it better. And also thanks to Vero and the amazing group of my amazing group of fans that I interact with and guys that I talk to on Vero, and the amazing experience I have with my fan interaction that I have with the guys, because it's just great, and it's
And the women.
and the women amazing. Yes. That's what happened. So this movie, the director's cut happened. Well, first of all, I was excited about the concept of a director's cut, because I knew. Well, I didn't know, but I had a feeling that the studio wasn't into a 3-hour version of the movie. And, maybe I was wrong, but I kind of feel like then when IMAX came along, this movie, the theatrical cut of Watchmen is exactly dictated by what was the film length of IMAX, right? So we knew that we had, I think, 2 hours and 24 minutes or something like that?
It was close.
Yeah, so say, I forget, whatever the length of the theatrical cut of Watchmen is the exact length of an IMAX movie that is possible on film. So it's probably around the same length as The Dark Knight, because I know that they said that if we had a lot of moisture in the projection booth, the film would fall off the reel, because it was literally 4 more minutes and we couldn't do it. So we cut the movie knowing that we had that to work with kind of as a release. And also the studio didn't want the movie to be that long anyway, 2 hours and 20, whatever it is, 24 minutes. But I was like, oh, but that's IMAX, so. Right? Otherwise the 3-hour version is pretty cool. And so they were like, oh, no, that's good then. We should probably focus on the IMAX length. That seems much better. But so yeah, that's kind of how and I'm sure, I don't know if any of you guys have seen the theatrical version compared to this version, but I would say that this version is much more, it's just cleaner overall. Everybody, it's closer to the graphic novel. A lot of people have asked me why I don't think the ultimate cut is the director's cut. And the only reason that I consider this the director's cut, though I do love the ultimate cut, I'm not saying I don't, this was more in the design of the movie. What happened was I tricked everybody into, not everybody, but enough people to get things made, into making that, we were making it as an additional piece of supplemental material, the Black Freighter. And we had also said to DVD that hey, can we shoot some interstitials with the news vendor and the kid so that they can, so that we could have some cool make a short little film out of it. And then I was able to take that stuff and stick it in the actual movie. So I did have the idea that we would eventually create some crazy full experience, but in the initial design of the film, when that wasn't really an option, it only became an option when we were talking about DVD. This was kind of the movie. So that's why I sort of consider this this was my first sort of vision of the film. And then as luck would have it that because we had sort of tricked everybody into this extra material, and we were able to put it in and kind of pad it out and make it sort of even more similar to the graphic novel, which I loved. But again, like I was saying, it wasn't exactly in the design of the original sort of vision for the film. So that's why this to me is the most kind of, it's what I drew in the first time I sat down and drew the movie. This was kind of what it was. So that's why.
There we go. Well, it worked. So I got a question for Jackie, because this is such an incredible performance, kind of iconic, and you were then taking the double risk of bringing to life something that so many people knew from the graphic novel, and then all those scenes where we get to see you are fabulous, but then you have that other little extra problem where your face is covered. for a bunch of it, and you've done that before as Freddy Krueger and what have you. So tell us a little bit about how an actor gets as much performance out when your face is obscured by just using your body, using your voice and what have you, because it worked.
I think that was definitely like a concern when starting to do the movie, because as an actor, you really don't want to be an actor, you want to be a reactor. So it's kind of like you want to kind of have the performance be internally driven through what the character's going through at any given moment, and so I kind of had to ask myself the question of like, can I kind of trust that method even though my face is covered? And I ultimately decided to just do this performance like I would any other. And Zack was cool in the standpoint of like letting the actors kind of like see takes back on the monitor and stuff. And for the most part, after we do takes, I'd kind of go look at the monitor and I could see like, wow, it's coming through, whatever's coming through. But there were a few times where I'd kind of come back and look at the monitor and realize that what I was doing just wasn't kind of coming through. And then, so there was an occasion here and there where I'd kind of need to animate the suit a little bit to try to get the point across. But for the most part, just performing like my face was, visible, just seemed to work. Like if I could really just own the moment, feel the moment, be the moment, then it seemed to play through.
Yeah, because we could see in the way you walked and tilted the head and.
And Jackie had, on the day when we shot, there was like, the mask had holes in the eye. He could see, and there was like, tracking markers on his mask. So it wasn't like, there was this sort of suspension of disbelief that we all had to have. They're like, oh yeah, that's gonna look cool when we finish it. Because, right now it's just a ski mask. So.
Yeah, there really were two like kind of big, openings, and obviously that's so that I could see. But I think where Zack was coming from on that too is it also gave the other actors the ability to playing across from me was being able to see my eyes. I think made a difference for them as well.
Right. Yeah.
And we had
as well as for DJ too.
Yeah, because we had a long I can't remember, I wish DJ was here, but we did a very deep dive on all the Rorschach patterns, depending on the moment. Like we would say, we had like a whole graph of like if he, we would spot it and be like, okay, in this scene, like when he says these words, it should do this shape, and then like, it was a super intense process for us in post of just trying to like honor Jackie's performance in the Rorschachs that were on the mask, as much as we could. So,
and that's another thing that was like really cool. It's like I was talking about going back and checking out the monitor to see what we were doing on the day, but in terms of what you guys did, like ultimately was like amazing. Like to me, when I saw this for the first time, and then I was able to see, everything that we were doing, with the big open eyes and everything, but to be able to see what you guys did with those ink blots, it really did feel like, like everything fit perfectly. So I can see you taking all that time to.
Yeah, we really were careful. Yeah, I remember that. And there's the most obvious one is when Ozzy punches you and they all kind of go to the side, which we thought that was kind of funny. We really enjoyed that because we were like, because we've been so like careful with them, and then we were like, oh cool, when he gets punched, they all just kind of sloshed around. And I think also there is some sort of like, I'm trying to remember exactly in the graphic novel, it's been a while, but we also had some, I think there's some explanation in the graphic novel about how it works, about how the technology of the mask works. I believe, and someone will correct me.
I think you're making that up.
No, I'm not. I believe it's some like, it was some byproduct of some technology of Dr. Manhattan technology that was like ended up in civilian hands and then turned into a thing. But someone will tell me the actual thing. No one?
By the way, there was.
Yes, go.
He was like an apprentice at a fabric place.
Yeah.
A dual layer.
There it is.
Mask with ink in it.
Okay, perfect.
There we go.
Yeah. And that's also, It too, so good.
Yeah, top that. So I have a question for Deborah, which is, we're in a film school, so the end of my question will tell you that.
Okay.
So here you are, you're a producer, and you had done, bigger and bigger and bigger movies, and then you're like at Eisenhower-sized army here, keeping them all marching in the same place, on time, on budget, and you did it, and you're doing it again, and getting these things done in an amazing way. What's your advice for young women? We have a lot of young women who want to be producers, cinematographers, and what have you, and what's your advice to do what you're doing?
I think that as many people that say no, you just keep saying yes, I can, and just know that you can, because sometimes that's really hard. Getting rejected and even getting movies made is hard. It took, how many years did it take when we did 300? It took years and years to get that movie made. I have a passion project of, Zack and mine right now, and it's been 10 years and we're still trying to get it made. So it's always difficult. Even if you have success, it's difficult. And I know starting out, sometimes it seems crazy. I was a girl that grew up in New Jersey, and I went to Ithaca College and I studied communications there, and I ended up falling in love with advertising and doing these like 30-second spots that I thought were these mini movies. But in my mind, I never thought that I would ever make it. Like, California seemed so far away. I didn't know anyone. And then I just kept just working hard and working my way up. I remember my first job, I didn't type, and I was like, well, I have a college degree. And they're like, well, if you're gonna be a production assistant here at the ad agent, you gotta pass the typing test. And I was like, what? And I only got the job because the human resources woman was like in another meeting, and they let me go up and meet the head of production. And he was like, I don't care that you can't type or that you failed the test, but whatever you do, even if it's getting coffee or, I did all those jobs. And if you do your best, people will take notice. And if you take pride in what you do, and it's the most important thing, whatever that assignment is, you will move ahead and just keep persevering. That's my advice.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. So Larry, you're coming into this. You're a visionary your own self, and you and Zack have this graphic novel that is iconic, and so it's a little bit like somebody writing a score with a famous melody in it. You sort of have to riff on that. How do you go past that to make this your movie, your movie and Zack's movie? How do you go past those things? What? Because it was a motion picture experience. It wasn't just a bunch of pictures. So how do you take it to that next level?
Actually, I just went through the graphic novels and I just copied every picture.
There you go. That'll work. Don't mess with success.
But some of the pictures are like this, so.
I hate that. Well, vertical video. Just use your phone.
No, we should broach that subject, because when people say it's just exactly like the graphic novel, it's nothing like the graphic novel.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The shapes, movie coverage is actually boring with the wides and overs and close-ups, and comic books can do crazy time, especially with the people that did Watchmen, Ellen Moore and Dave Gibbons. They can do crazy things with reality, because the rules for filmmaking are kind of sometimes formulaic, a little boring. So, but I was in the position of, luckily, with Zack Snyder, when you have a director like him who says, the priority is to make it look cool, where other directors might just say, I don't care what it looks like, or can you just go faster? Producers are saying, just go cheaper. It's a reality. So, so Zack will take the time to make something look cool, even through the craziest ideas that come up on the spot. There's one shot we were just talking about earlier. I don't know if you remember where we're in the prison, and you see what's his name? Big Figure. And they're walking, and then they're talking, it's Rorschach's behind us, and it holds, and at some point he continues to talk, and then the camera pulls back, and we're inside of the jail cell. Do you remember that shot? But it goes through the bars, right? The camera's this big. So I think we're on our tech scout, maybe. We're just talking about how you wanted to do that. And we just totally thought of that on the spur of the moment, I think. Like, hey, you know what would be funny? Isn't that like some of our best stuff is kind of like that. And they go, well, then we have to do a hole. And then, hey, VFX, can you make fake bars later? And they go, oh, more money. That wasn't in the plan. Of course we're going to do it. So there's a lot of the coolest stuff in Watchmen because it's stuff we thought would just be super cool. Not all spur of the moment, but some of it. But mostly because Zack's genius.
Also, I think that DJ, our visual effects supervisor, who's in Australia right now, working on another movie. Sad he couldn't be here, but he is a huge fan. He's just like he's exactly the kind of guy that should be doing this movie. You know, when we would say something like, "Oh, cool, we want to go through the bars," or he'd be like, "Okay, well that's awesome. So yeah, we got to figure that out. We got to go through the bars then." And there was never any like, "No, that's not really like that. Is there a cheaper way to do that?"
Rubber bars.
What if we were like, just kind of, what if the lens went through the bars, but not the whole camera?
That might have been our first idea.
Yeah.
Right, like back it up and kind of.
Yeah, just get the nose of the lens. Oh, yeah. That probably would. But I was like, oh, but it's cooler if he's further away. Yeah. Yeah. That happens all the time. But yeah, it's cool.
If he doesn't say no all the time, hang on to that guy. That's great. Because usually it's like, yeah, I don't think so.
Who, DJ?
Yeah.
Well, your DJ, yeah, no,
Yeah.
he never says no.
Too expensive.
He never says no.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, it worked. And you went through the, didn't you go through the cemetery sign too?
Cemetery sign. We were also talking about the owl ship shot where we come. It's when Dan and Rorschach are having their kind of like, when they're talking about, him being a little too soft when it comes to like women. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and Dan's like, don't do that. Everyone thinks you're a psycho, so they don't tell you not to do that. And he's like, they have their little handshake. It's kind of like their most loving moment. It's pretty hilarious. But that shot starts inside and it goes kind of through the glass and then kind of comes across and then it's a nice long oneer that's pretty.
Yeah, it's
pretty
awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
CG glass. But I have to talk about that cemetery shot because we did that on. Have you ever seen on pictures where they have a car or SUV and then there's a crane arm on the SUV that can drive? You notice that there was kind of a driveway in the middle of the cemetery, so we used that and drove through the street and the other way, and had a remote head on the end of this crane. So it starts on a close-up of the statue, right? It wraps around and it flies up, and then of course the cemetery sign was. Some of it was there. Was missing the middle part.
We had the kind of side so we could target the center. We missed it too badly.
Right. But so we're telling we're sitting there on the day and we're telling the camera operator, okay, now make believe there's a sign and just pull back. And he goes, well, how do I know where the sign is? Flying backwards, there's no registration, right? There's no.
Next time, I want it to come between the E.
That don't exist.
It should go right through that little hole. And they were like, okay. All right.
By the way,
Yeah.
the angel in the cemetery, we've had in how many movies now? It started in Watchmen.
What was in Sucker? We used it in Sucker Punch. It was in Watchmen and Sucker Punch.
And it was in
We used it in Man of Steel. We put it
Man
in
of
the
Steel
cemetery.
too, yeah.
And it's in
An
the
angel.
office. I have it in my
Same
office.
exact prop, yeah.
Although it's all shot up. The one I have in the office, the one we have in the office is all shot up because it's the one from Sucker Punch. Because remember, the girl's like machine gunned it, so it's like all like shot up now, but it's cool.
That's pretty good. It's getting good residuals.
It's good.
3 movies.
It's getting 0 residuals, by the way.
Yeah, well, he didn't give it a line, which is a dirty trick. So.
I think the studio just wants it. They don't want it back, but I think it's on loan. Technically, it doesn't belong to us because it's slightly stolen, I guess.
Internet, keep that
It's made out
quiet.
of styrofoam.
Yeah. You
I don't know what you're gonna do with it. You can't put it in the cemeteries.
No, it'd be pretty disrespectful. So, so I have a question for Bill Hoy, who edited this thing. Woo! So, much like we have a lot of producers here, we have a lot of editors, in our film school, and so everybody's always curious, how sausage is made. So when you're working with Zack, do you edit sequences as they come in? Are you like a few days behind him? Do you wait until principal photography's over and then do your assembly? And then as a secondary follow-up question, did you say in the back of your mind, there's going to be a director's cut? I'm just going to scroll away a couple of timelines here, and I'm just going to pull them out later. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I normally go on location, so I start shooting the moment I get a complete scene.
Mhm.
So we can talk about if there's anything missing or how the performances are going, and I'd love to check with Zack, with the directors, and say, come in and take a look at the scene and see how the actors are playing out, see how the story's playing out. So the more scenes I get, then I begin to put it all together, scene after scene, if they're connected. And so the director feels good about what's going on, and he can feel good about the actors and how the story's progressing, and he's getting everything he wants. So we start there, and I normally put the picture in one piece. I usually tell the director, after principal photography, please go away for 2 weeks and just leave me alone. And I'll put music and sound effects, and when you come back, you can look at the movie, and you'll have some distance to it, so that you can see it as an audience would, and then you won't see that really horrible day you had on the set, or that really good day you keep patting yourself on the back for. It's not there, because it didn't really quite work. So at least you have some distance, and then you can think about story, you can think about the characters and things like that. So what's your second question?
Oh, I was just wondering if there was ever in the back of either of you guys' mind about a director's cut and whether or not you had assembled some of those. Well, I guess you showed them a longer cut and then they cut it, or did you come in with the knowing about IMAX, come in at 224?
We showed,
didn't we?
I think we showed,
Pretty close.
We showed them the entire thing. I mean, Zack and I would watch the entire cut, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we show it to the studio, usually it's almost everything there, because they like to see if everything's there, with some exception. I mean, it's hard to show the studio a 3-hour cut. Sure. You know they're going to come up with some changes.
Yeah.
But that's a trick too. So, because you want the studio to have something to say, otherwise you get it down to 2 hours and 25 minutes, and they got something to say about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't want that.
2 hours, they got something to say.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's it's never putting any footage back in.
Oh yeah, guys, it's too short.
I really listen
What the
to-
fuck? Where's the Hollis Mason death scene? Yeah, you gotta put that back. No,
You know,
it's not a thing.
When I was watching it today, I haven't seen it since the release, so I have great distance for it. And this is director's cut, and I was thinking to myself, what did we cut out? Because this works so well, and I'm looking at certain moments, going, did we plan that?
I like to think
We did cut out 40 minutes.
So somehow, no, it's
Yeah,
I guess
40
it's
minutes.
close to 40 minutes.
40 minutes long.
I don't know where the 40 minutes came from. It makes me want to watch the theatrical cut, sort of. Well, I know the Hollis Mason death scene, that for sure. That for sure.
That was gone.
What else?
Wait, that was beautifully. I was looking at that today and I was like, oh,
The bar
I can't
the
believe
bar
we
scene
didn't put
where
it
he
in
goes,
the
"I'm
theatrical.
gonna
'Cause it was
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
gone. I love that scene.
That's such a cool scene.
That's so good. That's such a great performance. Not in front of the civilian.
Yeah, not in front of the civilians is like the best line, one of the best lines in the movie. I laughed out loud when I saw that tonight. I was like, not in front of the civilians. I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's so perfect. Anyway, that's good.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
There you go.
It's crazy how a longer cut can actually feel shorter because it just clipped along and everything hung together, and it's just what it needed to be.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's fun to see actually because I haven't seen it for a super long time, and I just felt like there's no way they would let you make that movie today. This movie is a very particular thing. This movie is not. There is no chance of anything like this, you know. So it's fun. That's like I was saying like this Watchmen is a direct result. If someone likes 300, if someone likes Watchmen and doesn't like 300, you should say like, well, you don't get Watchmen without 300 because this is just 300 like juice. You know, the studio, because they were pretty sure, I mean not sure, but they were like, I wonder if 300 is going to be a thing at all. And then when its success, and then when we started working on this, they were pretty much just like, they were I don't want to say they were sure it wasn't going to work, but they had reservations about 300 being anything. They just were like, well, it's a roll of the dice. If it doesn't work, that's fine too. And then I guess when we were working on this, they were like, well, I guess it's the same, because when we look at it, we're just like, I don't know what the hell you guys are doing. This doesn't make any sense. But so I think that was kind of a cool. It's kind of a nice. I like that we were in this. This movie deserved that moment in history where we were just like unencumbered and completely off the radar. And the movie wasn't insanely, it was expensive, but it wasn't insanely. A lot of the costs of the movie had already been, there was like, what was it, $20 million or something like that was
We're
against
not supposed to talk about budget.
Okay, there was a fair amount of money. There was a fair amount of money against the movie already.
Yeah, because it was around for a long time before we started, so there was a lot of money that, because that's what happens too. Like a movie starts out at one studio and they do development, right? And so I think, and this movie was over at Fox, and then it was at Paramount, and then it came to Warner's. And actually, it almost didn't even make it to the screen because for some reason, everyone with the title, chain of title, everyone kind of forgot that Fox was involved. So we got like a cease and desist order, I think, and they had to like rectify all the legal issues before the movie could come out. But
after we shot it.
After we shot it.
It almost just got shelved. We could have been showing you guys a movie that no one ever saw. That would have been cool.
But all the
Go ahead.
Now, like I was saying though, all the money of the it just doesn't go away because they're like, oh, you're making the money. So all the money that was spent at Fox and Paramount and everything contributes, it goes into your budget. So then you're like, wow, before we even started making it, we had stuck money against it.
There we go. And there's
that happened to me last time.
you guys had direct costs and then overhead and everything, and it's a miracle that Fox let it go because studios don't like to put things into turnaround because it's like, well, no, because then you'll make it and it'll be successful and then we'll look like idiots for putting it in a turnaround, so they rather just sit on it.
Yeah, because the Paul Greengrass version of this movie, they built sets and everything. They were almost.
So they were down the road.
They were really down. So there was a lot of money against the movie on the Paul Greengrass version.
But this was a co-production, so distribution was between Warner's had it domestically and Paramount distributed it worldwide.
Yeah. But Fox let it go.
That's why the cool mountain at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. Well, this actually ties into I
like that logo. That's cool.
I like it. It's cool. I like when the little stars go around it.
Yeah, it's cool. But I also like, it's cool, because I'm always into like redesigning everyone's logos. I think that's fun. And I really like these logos, just like yellow and black, and no, they don't get to fuck around. I'm just like, no, you're getting the graphic version of your logo. We're not gonna do any because I remember it's always a conversation, they're like, when we screen the movie, they're like, where's the thing? I'm like, no, that's it. It's just it's just gonna be that. I think it's better. Because your thing takes me out of the movie a little bit. You're like crazy. I don't know what that is. That's a crazy thing. It's cool, but I think for this, it's better just have the mountain, better.
Because multinational corporations never care about
that. Yeah, no, exactly.
You go in, you tell them how
and they're
to do
just
it.
like, oh, we better talk to our lawyers. I don't know if that's okay to just have that. So so it's cool.
I'm sure.
It was fun that they kind of said yes to that. I was like, if you're just confident, sometimes it works, If you're like, oh no, it's fine. Don't put your logo that you've spent millions of dollars on the movie. That's, like you said, your corporate identity. Yeah. So that's fine. No,
it's too colors. You're welcome.
I'm gonna do that. So it's good.
So I have one question here from a Vero user, Mateo. Then this would be for Debbie and Zach and whoever else wants to chime in. What was the biggest challenge to bringing this bad boy to life, aside from what you just told us?
That's like an awesome question. I'll tell you that. But it's also the question, if you've ever been on a press junket for a movie, that's the question. What was the biggest challenge? And it's it's a true question. And I think Debbie's going to answer it.
Yeah. He directs and he tap dances.
Okay. Honestly, I think it was all Nixon and Bowie and doing all. No, I do. Honestly, I struggled with like the casting of those guys legally. We were like, do we need to get permission? I don't know. I guess we're okay. Is it a parody? What is it? But the makeup effects for all those people, we wanted them to be bulletproof, and it was a lot of makeup effects and a lot of design. And I remember Castro like flaked on us, and we pulled someone from the.
That was Johnny Carp. Johnny Carp was Castro. Our Castro went crazy, and like at the last second, he was like, "Wait a minute, is this a parody of Castro? Because I'm like playing a serious Castro." And I was like, I'm not trying to make fun of Castro. Don't.
By the way, this was the day of the shoot.
Yeah.
So we were like,
also,
okay, who's around here that looks like Castro?
Because remember, he had also gotten like some bicycle accident. He had rented a bike and like fallen off of it and was hurt. And it was a weird situation. And I said, you know what? Yeah, you're not gonna do that. So then our carpenter, who's like our on-set carpenter, who was working on the movie, Johnny, I was like, Johnny, you want to be Castro?
Like all my life.
And he was like, yeah, I'll do fucking Castro. And he looks awesome. He looks like Castro. I think he looks more like Castro. I thought today, I'm like, Johnny looks just like fucking Castro. It's cool.
But I
wouldn't put that as the biggest challenge.
Wait, I have two of them. I have two of them.
Okay, two.
So I do think the makeup effects were challenging, but I also think that the amount of sets that we had, and also for the budget, we were trying to figure out, and Alex McDowell was supposed to be here, he watched the movie, and then he had a family issue that he had to leave. But
we could have pressed Alex.
It's as much money as you have, you never seem like you have enough money, and there was over 120 sets that we had to build, and this backlot, because you realize that 80s New York doesn't exist anywhere anymore. It's like we scouted New York, and we wanted it to feel really gritty, so we built this backlot, and across, so we had New York, and then we had like Vietnam across the street, so we couldn't turn the camera around because it was Vietnam. But we shot every single inch of that backlot, and we reused pieces of the sets. And we were just talking a little bit earlier how we went, like one set, we used the interior, and then they're like, come back after lunch and we're gonna like redress it. So we had to like take a break and then come back and then use it for something else. So it was a lot of that, like, world building is difficult, but world building when you also have to like reuse things and repurpose them makes it even more challenging. Is that better?
No, that's great.
Okay, good.
That's 100%. Yeah, no, I mean, the careful thing is that, we were really, a lot of the like sets that we shot for the film were very like carefully designed. Look, there's a lot of stuff that we were like, fuck it, maybe this is cooler. But a lot of the movie was just very much as I drew it. So you actually could make 120 sets and not, because like I was, like for instance, when the young Dr. Manhattan is working at his dad's watch factor shop, and he's building his watch, that was like this crazy teeny set that I think was part of another set, and we were just like, okay, that's fine, that's cool, because the movie's so vignette-y, it's like so many vignettes, one right after the other, and to figure it out, you just have to be really careful and not, because you can kill everyone just by going like, it'd be cool if we look that way, like the other way, and they're like, There's no set over there.
Well, and I think that's the thing, that because you draw all the storyboards, every single frame, we could talk about it ahead of time. So, like, Zack isn't one of these directors who shows up and is like, okay, I'm in the room and I'm gonna see where I'm gonna point the camera. Like, everything is so specifically planned, whether it's visual effects or whether it's what we're building or whether it's the stunt. So on the day, it's really about the performance, and we're not thinking about that. And then we can put more money on the screen because we're only building what we really need.
One of the things in the movie that's cool, and I don't know if anybody got the reference to congratulations, Mr. Gorski. Yes. Does anyone know what that is about? Does everybody know? Who? Show of hands who knows who Mr. Gorski is. So it's a small group, it's a dedicated group. It's an old group. So the shot of Neil Armstrong, right? And you hear him go, congratulations, Mr. Gorski, on his thing, right? On his. It's funny, when I watched First Man, the movie, remember, you guys saw First Man? Yeah. Okay, when I watched First Man, I was like, he should say, congratulations, Mr. Gorski. Okay, so the urban legend, and it's not an urban legend, it's true, is that Neil Armstrong's neighbor, Neil Armstrong had said to his neighbor, like, one day I'm gonna make it to the moon. Like, I'm gonna be an astronaut, I'm gonna go to the moon. And his neighbor said to him, like, on that day, I think it was the wife who said it to him, right? So the wife says to him, like, if you ever make it to the moon, I'm gonna give Mr. Gorski a blowjob. Okay? That's what's good. If this kid makes it to the moon, get ready, Mr. Gorski, because that's what's gonna happen. So that's what the reference to that, congratulations, Mr. Gorski, is that.
Aside there, Zack.
What's that?
There's a really weird aside.
It's cool though. It's cool. My point is that there are some details in the movie that you're maybe not aware of.
Well, you had a great homage to the War Room in Doctor Strange.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Who knows the episode of Outer Limits that is playing on the TV in the last scene when we show the Outer Limits?
We see all the, because we just heard the...
Because we hear the logo, we hear the intro, but there's an actual, if you listen carefully to the audio, it's actually, I forget actually what episode it is. You clapped it.
Somebody knows
so
it.
that's the same storyline.
Same storyline, yeah. Because it's referenced in the graphic novel. Yeah, so anyway.
God, that's great. That's
So it's not completely random.
No, it is not. I felt like one of the bedroom scenes looked a little bit like 2001 bedroom. Was that?
Oh yeah, 100%. I wish Alex was here. All of Dr. Manhattan's stuff is very 2001 inspired.
Yeah.
Because he's that.
Yeah, because it's a famous movie. Just saying. All right, we're opening this up to the audience. We have microphone people on both sides, so raise your hand. I see a hand go right up over here. The man in I was going to say the lanyard, but that's stupid. I'm pointing to you, buddy. That's it. He's doing this. He's coming up for air.
So I'm super nervous about asking questions, so I'm going to have to pull up what I wrote down.
Oh, that's scary.
Don't worry, it's short. So
it's legal, I don't.
So the film had a lot of noir, like a really noir feeling. Were there a lot of noir films that you guys watched either during production or during pre-production to pull specific moments from, either in music or
silhouette question.
No, we don't.
Yeah, pull that microphone.
No. I don't know, Zach.
We were talking about silhouettes up in the at dinner. Because like that shot where Rorschach kicks the door in and he's standing there. It's like his whole such a cool. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I guess that's noir-y.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the music and whatnot too during all the Rorschach scenes to me reminded me of 50, 60.
Well, he's kind of a hard-boiled kind of dude, right? So I think you get that.
I played everything very noir.
I think that's what did it.
My motivation.
Well, I would have just go more noir.
The voiceover too. That's a very noir thing.
Yeah, the BL for
right?
sure.
Was it all unintentional then? Is that what
No, I mean, as a genre, VO, silhouettes, guy in a like fedora. There's nothing left. There's no more noir.
It's kind of a giveaway.
That's kind of it. That's it. So absolutely.
Were there specific films that you pulled from? Any like?
Was there noir films? Can you remember?
Ones that you were referencing.
I don't think we reference a lot of films. We don't kind of do that much. As far as, you know, you always hear the stories where you sit around and you watch DVDs with, you watch
Touch of Evil.
conversation.
And ILM for Murder. I don't know, what are the noir films? Those are the
But it sounds pretentious, but if you want to do something different, and we do, then I was thinking, well, this is a period piece in the 70s, but my question was always like, do you want to look like 70s? Because I could do that, but then it's going to look like a parody, like a sitcom. So, and you can't make it completely modern, use modern, completely film techniques, so then it looks like contemporary film. So it's a weird hybrid that Rod's kind of towing the line.
I mean, because we had so much, there's so much in the material that's built in. Like, look, when I said, okay, I want to build the Strange Love fucking war room, you know, that just, so that you can't shoot that any other way. It just is what it is, you know, you're like, okay. And that was actually one of those sets where it looks cool, but it was super, we had cast in the background. It's hard to, I remember that like we had cast a super little guy, he was like a jockey, to play the guard in the room because the set wasn't big enough. So we had this little guy and he was right there, but it looked like the room was really big because he was just this teeny guy. So, but it was things like that we had to do all the time in order to make, you know, like, how are we gonna make this, we only have the set's only this big, it's supposed to be a giant room. I'm like, okay, well if we get a teeny guy and put him over there, we'll make the room look bigger, and it worked, totally worked.
Totally worked. There you go.
So, but yes, so there is, look, it is and it isn't, you know, it's and also I believe we're programmed anyway, by the way, with, those movies are in our, you know, you can't make a shot of a guy in a fedora in a doorway or at the top of a staircase, you know. Yeah, it's gonna be that. So yes and no.
Next question's over here, man in the black and white.
I have two questions. My first question is for all of you. What, in your experience, eats up the most amount of time on set? Is it lighting setups? Is it actors missing their marks? Is it
Yes. No.
Technical issues with new equipment? And then my second question was for Mr. Fong. What were your go-to lights and focal lengths for Watchmen?
35 mil.
35 mil.
35 mil.
In 35 mil if it's spherical, and Zach like 16 millimeter if it's kind of morphic.
That's 100% true. 35 mil. When in doubt, 35.
I totally forgot what the
answer.
question was.
Go-to lights and focus.
Oh, but also first, what takes the most time?
Right.
Don't ask the DP because.
Sorry, it's Larry.
It's Larry.
Always the same.
I was gonna say Larry and Zach joking around.
That's a rude question.
Is you and DJ watching SNL like usually film clips like Joshi?
Oh, yeah, that's true. We did. Dave Joshi's here. He's right there. Stand up, Dave. Please. Okay, so Dave is also an alum of Watchmen. He did all the playback for us. And so basically he's the guy. If anyone in this room who I sat next to the entire movie was Dave. And so like Dave got the most raw, like pure Zack Snyder Watchmen experience. Because I'd be like, oh, let's watch. What do we watch the most? Probably Washington. The Cox and Combs Washington. Is anyone familiar with it? Neely's Washington? It's fucking sweet. Go look it up immediately and go watch it. So we watched that like 1,000 times.
As we were waiting for Larry.
Oh!
It hurts. But I was paying David to play those things for all the time, so you're not staring at
See?
me.
It's a conspiracy.
Laser.
And then we also watched a lot of some Andy Samberg. A lot of Samberg. like all those SNL, like we watched, what was the one? Iran.
Iran was our theme, basically.
Iran was our theme. You know that, have you guys seen that SNL like short called Iran where Sandberg and, who's the guy from, no, the guy from fucking, the guy who sang in the Super Bowl.
Justin Timberlake.
No,
Adam Levine?
This Super Bowl, Adam Levine.
Oh.
Adam Levine. Anyway, it's Adam Levine and Sandberg doing this weird thing, like a you just have Iran. It's about what's his name, the Prime Minister of Iran when he came to the UN to talk, and it's about him being gay. And you just have to watch it because it's amazing. So it was that. It was Washington and that. And the Narnia one, Chronicles of Narnia. That was also in heavy rotation. So we had those three things to distract us from Larry's.
I didn't take that long, did I?
No. We were enjoying it for the 300th time.
If you want to make a movie
so it
that
was
looks
fine.
good, you need to.
No,
But did we finish on schedule?
we did.
Yes, we did.
So yeah. Actually,
On
also,
time, under budget, as usual.
I don't usually special lights or anything. I mean now there's LEDs, but back then sometimes people had weird, crazy lights from other countries and stuff. No, it's whatever light turns on is basically fine with me. But we use a lot of Kinos, I think. Then a lot of Kinos on the floor. People use Kinos less now because LEDs are like that, but better. So yeah, nothing special. I don't do anything tricky.
Image 80s or divas or...
Good. Actually, the giant Karnak set had like 300 Image 80s all above the silk, so that whole room was
Even a soft.
yeah. And it's not hot and dangerous because space lights get super hot, and if something breaks,
Right.
there's a fire. So
Focal length is 35 through the whole...
that's the only lens we use.
I don't think it is the only lens, but it's pretty close.
No, but Zack's not. When we did commercials a lot, it was kind of big to use long lenses and stuff. So I think that trend has changed. I think Zack's more medium wide-ish, at least for now.
Yeah, you get a sense of the environment.
I still like, you know what I do? I really love like a 35 mil, but like as wide open as possible. So I like it wide, but I still like a 35 mil, to me is like a semi-wide lens. It's a lens that you can still shoot a close-up of a person with and not have them look freakishly weird. So, but it's still, you can still register depth of field with it, because I think that, if you're wide open on a 35, there's still like fall off. If you're wide open on an 18, it's just like, okay, so what? Everything's in focus anyway. So, but like, and they don't look like freakishly weird, like something like their nose is giant or something.
So were you guys shooting on a T2?
No, I mean I would always ask, but not often. I would
put it more because
yeah.
I would say I was doing it, but I wasn't because I didn't want the takes to be out of focus.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is. I'm like, it should be wide open, and he's like, it is.
You come and check, so I had lenses made with all the numbers were actually wrong a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all like, so it says a 2, but it's a 4.
Right.
Because they don't want me to get fired.
There you go. Man with the black shirt, right there. The man in black.
The first time I saw Watchmen was on a Tuesday before it opened, and it was at the BAFTA, with the BAFTA screening, and Dave Gibbons came out.
Oh, cool.
And he said, I just got done doing the commentary for the Ultimate Cut, and he described it to us. And we had just seen the theatrical cut, and we were all like, well, when does this come out? And he said, I don't know. And then
So Gibbonsy.
Yeah. So really what I wanted to say to all of you is when we saw Watchmen in 2009, it was a very different time in America. And when you read the Watchmen graphic novel, if you lived through the 80s, you knew what that felt like. Watching Watchmen tonight had a very different feeling than 2009. It felt like it belonged here and now, and it was reflecting what we have going on. And there are films there are movies and there are pieces of cinema that become art. And I think that Watchmen, I felt then and I feel now, it's one of the great films of the last decade. It's a piece of art. And the greatest thing about it, every version works. Every version is organic to what it was intended to do. This is my favorite version. But the longer cut is the graphic novel basically brought to life in cinema. Each one in its own respect is perfect. But I really wanted to compliment everybody here on an incredible artistic achievement. And I have never seen period, 80s, anything backlot done, period, done so incredibly. The audience that night really would have loved to have had one of you there, because everybody in the audience could not believe those were sets. And the photography, everybody's contribution was just phenomenal. But I'm really glad you guys are getting the critical reevaluation now that you deserved in 2009.
That's kind.
What a great gift for us. Thank you.
Question right here.
Hey, my question is the music. Because each scene that has tracks like the Philip Glass or the Bob Dylan, for those particular scenes, were those songs, in the back of your head from the beginning, or was it like?
Yeah, I had scoured the graphic novel. A lot of the songs are referenced in the graphic novel. A lot of the songs that I chose. I mean, like, not Sound of Silence, oh, maybe. I don't think so. What's that? Mixtape. Yeah, mixtape. Yes, exactly. So I had to make a mixtape, and it worked out. But a lot of Unforgettable and Times They Are Changing. Those are all songs that are referenced in the graphic novel. There are more. Desolation Row.
But the Philip Glass one, was that the one?
The Philip Glass one.
Bill put that in there, right? The Philip
and
then we fell in love with it.
Yeah, because I'm a huge Philip Glass fanatic, and so when we would talk about it, I'd be like, Philip Glass is the best. And so we stuck it on, that Philip Glass song, and we just couldn't get it off the movie. Like, we wanted to get it off. Like when you make a movie and you tempt something with a song from another film, the intent is to take it off eventually and not have it be on there. But there was just we could not get it off.
Because I know that came from a documentary, and what was it? It was actually that movie. That was the first time I ever heard that song in Philip Glass. I was 13. So it was like, wow, and it was because of that movie and listening to that scene and with the music when I became a big Philip Glass song.
Yeah, I know, because it's just like that. And it's just like his, I'm just, I love
it was like, composed for God, basically.
Yeah. It's funny because Debbie and I recently, I've been working on Fountainhead and just writing, and we met with Philip because I really wanted him to do the score for it, because I always felt like that would be like the perfect, he would be perfect for it. And we haven't gotten it made, but we've had a lot of great meetings with him and sort of gotten to know him through that process, and it's been really cool to sit with him and go to his house in New York and hang out with him. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, he's awesome. So and it was cool because actually when we put it on the movie, I had to call him to say, we had to send him the scene and say, we put your music that you didn't intend on a scene in our crazy movie about a blue guy who, you'll have to see it. I'm having a hard time describing, sounding bad. So just watch it. And then he was really cool. He was like that. It was amazing. He really loved the sequence. So it was cool that he liked it. It's often that an artist doesn't.
Let's hit somebody in the back. I see a man with a black hat on with his hand way up there. He's waving at me.
This is a question for Zach, and basically, you were talking about Watchmen being a comic book movie that we wouldn't see anymore or anytime soon, maybe, and definitely was not part of the norm as a comic book movie. If it wasn't Watchmen, what other graphic novel do you think it could have been, in terms of what Watchmen was for comic book movies?
It's a good question. Let me just clarify. So you're asking, I mean, at that time
Yeah.
in the world, it's hard because Watchmen is a deconstructivist superhero movie, right? So it's basically like.
But I mean, in terms of like the maturity aspect of it, because comic book movies were, more family friendly.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree. Well, that's what I was going to get at. Basically, my point is that you have a movie like Watchmen that 10 years ago was basically addressing the genre of superhero movies. With now, in the 10 years since Watchmen came out, who knew how far we'd go with this superhero idea, right? With this, how superheroes have inundated the culture of cinema as they have, and I'm part of the problem. But my point is only that, like, when you watch this movie now, in knowing what we know, it's really, in a lot of ways, the movie should be being made now if you really want to, like. But again, the cool part about Watchmen is that you couldn't make this movie now, right? So it's in a weird way, like in a crazy time capsule. Like, we made a movie for now, 10 years ago, in reference to deconstruct the way cinema has evolved. So it's a really cool, like, I don't know, it's serendipitous. It's impossible to explain. But I do think that it's cool. When Chris Nolan and I were talking about Superman, when we were literally getting ready to make Superman, he said to me, he was like, Watchmen is the movie that makes Superman, possible in a cool way. But the interesting thing is, like, people talk about however I have influenced, or whatever I've done with Superman and Batman and everything I've done up till now, and then people have, like, criticized me for a lot of different aspects of the way I've interpreted those characters. But if you've seen this film, if you know that I made that movie, right, it's very difficult to then say, well, why would he do A or why would he do B? But if you've seen this movie, it's pretty obvious why. Like, once you that whole thing about, like, once you know the rules, you can break them? Right. Yeah. This movie is like, yeah, that's the rules. Like, you can't go backwards. It's very difficult to go backwards from this movie and go back to, like, a point in time where, like, this movie is the end of innocence for superheroes, right? These superheroes are raping each other, for God's sake, right? Yeah. They're fucking, like, murdering millions of people to create world peace. And someone says to me, like, oh, like, Batman killed a guy. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, wake the fuck up. It's like, I guess that's what I'm saying about, like, once you've, like, lost your virginity to this fucking movie, and then you come and say to me something about, like, oh, my superhero wouldn't do that. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I'm like down the fucking road. You know what I mean? So, and it's a cool point. Look, I'm 100% fine with it. It's a cool point of view to be like, my heroes are still innocent, My heroes didn't fucking, lie to America. My heroes didn't, embezzle money from their my heroes didn't fucking commit any atrocities. I'm like, that's cool, but you're living in a fucking dream world. you know, so the cool thing is like, so mythologically speaking, I'm 100% fine. And by the way, and I love more than anything, you know, Superman and Batman. But in, you know, in the same way that Alan Moore was fed up with the fucking like, okay, no, you know, they do this. Clearly, this is a response to, like, where Watchmen talks about comic books in the same way that this movie talks about comic book movies, but it talked about comic books at their most, they were broken, you know? So he was just addressing that. The thing with comic book movies is, and I'm a fan. Like, I go and see them, and I love them. And I don't have a, you know, I go and see all the Avengers movies, and I go and I enjoy them, and I love it. It's not, that's, you don't have to not enjoy them, but you also have to be like open to other things as well. You can't just,
the thing that's always cracked me up about kind of what you're talking about too is like, I've recently kind of done some binge watching on like, you know, the Marvel stuff on Netflix and stuff, and you've always got like the cops going after the Green Arrow or whoever about like, man, you're out there killing people, and you know, the characters are always so worried about like, we can never hurt anybody, we need to do the right thing. But during the whole damn show, the cops are just constantly shooting anybody with, you know, and then they're judging him. I don't get it. Justice is difficult. Oh, that's nice.
There you go. You see a man standing up with a microphone.
All right, Zach, this is kind of actually what you were talking about a little bit, but I was going to ask you if you had any intimation about where you were going, because I think, you know, that's what we see now, but the amalgamation of characters, right? They're flipping coins, like with Ozymandias and Lex, or you get Night Owl and Supes. I mean, they have these sort of trajectories of moralities in a way, and I think that's what kind of comes up where biggest one, Dr. Manhattan and Supes, you know, the plus minus of empathy and how they see that. And is there a parallel that you didn't know that you were going to make when you came to the, you know, DC Universe characters that we know as Batman and Superman? And then, you know, there's scenes in the films that have a, I guess, sort of mirror shot, you know, such as Lex and his corporation, and you have Ozymandias there. You have, you know, his fortress of hubris versus a fortress of solitude with Man of Steel and in BVS. You know, can you speak a little bit about that? Because I don't know, maybe you ended up there, but did you plan it that way?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think that it goes to a little about what I was saying about the, you know, it's like if you read, like, and I'm sure, I don't know if everybody's read Watchmen, but once you read it, it gets pretty deep in your, like, way of thinking about comic books, you know, and your way of thinking about that particular kind of mythology. And like, you know, Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, for me, comic books kind of like stopped, you know, for me. And like, look, there's plenty of other great comic books. I'm a huge fan. But for me, those two kind of like, if you're talking about sort of the deconstruction of like the why of comic books or the why of those mythological characters, in those two pieces of reference, you can sort of find your way through it. You know, whenever anyone asks me, if someone who's not like a comic book fan says like, hey, you know, what should I read? What should I like, you know, what should I think about? Like, what should I like? I always feel like, have you read Watchmen? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, okay, well, read that and then we can talk. Or like, you know, have you read Dark Knight Returns? Well, not really. Well, not carefully. I'm like, well, okay, you should read that too. Because it's, if you do that work, you kind of open your eyes to the world. And I think for me, those influences, whether it be Watchmen or Dark Knight Returns, they're similar in the way that they discuss like loss of innocence. And I think that's kind of goes to what you were saying about the sort of parallels between this movie and the other films that are made in sort of this world. And so yes, the answer is yes. There there was a definite Alan Moore pedigree that has continued to influence me as I addressed these iconic characters going forward. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, all of them. They all got, and you can't help it, but to be shot through that prism, because it's kind of it's a raw and real and kind of undeniable Alan's ability to kind of look at the sort of heart of one of those characters and understand why it exists and its flaws and its also strengths. And without, he's really good at not completely destroying it, you know what I mean? It's easy to just say, fuck that, that's stupid. Like, I hate that. But this is a guy that loves the character anyway, right? And that's, I think, for me, and I feel like that's how I feel about these characters. I love the characters, but I still want to know why they tick. I still want to test them. If there's a rule, if the character has a rule in canon, and in canon it says a character can never do that, that's the first thing I want to do. I'm like, why? Yeah, what? Oh, it can never go here. Well, let's go there. And if it doesn't, that's just me, that's just love. That's all that is, Anyway.
Thank you. All right, wow, we got plenty of questions here. Let's hit it to somebody over here. Yeah, good idea, there you go.
Please.
Did you say that? Behave yourself. All right,
Right here.
A woman got a question. There she is, right up front. Ask us a question.
I'm already standing. I might as well stay standing. So I really want to ask you about slow motion, because obviously that's become a very distinct signature of yours.
Controversial.
No, I love it. No, it's all love here, Zach. It's all love.
No, I know, but I just like
it. So there's obviously a ton of it in this film, and it's very striking visually, and in particular at the beginning, the fight with the comedian, and then also the assassin being disarmed by our hidden villain, were really amazing sequences. So I would love to know how you came to realize that you really love to use slow motion, and then also how that affects the way you plan these sequences, because of course these are very elaborate. They do not happen by accident or chance. So
yeah, because a lot of the slow motion in those sequences is all that's even fake slow motion. That is to say that there's no we didn't have the frame rate to make 1,000 frames per second of shot film. So we would the comedian would get punched in the face and would just literally be the guy, would just squish his face. And he would shoot it at 120 frames. So it was slow motion, but not what's implied.
Right.
And even in the title sequence, all those what feels like super slow motion shots, it's everyone just standing still. And then the flashbulb, we built this basically they had some, an old timey camera, and we just put a bulb in it, a light bulb that's on a rheostat, up and down, so it looks like a flash, but it's just nah, it's just a guy. So yeah, so a lot of that is it was very deliberate and very particular, and also it adds, there's something off-putting and weird about it too, which I think is cool in retrospect, that it's not 100% this weird ultra slow motion that you can achieve now with the digital camera, 1,000 frames per second. It's no big deal. Anyone can shoot 1,000 frames per second. But we were really struggling to kind of create that.
Because you can't slow a flash down.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. The cool thing about the old flash is that there was literally because there's filament inside burning. So you do get an up and down if you were capable of recording it at that frame rate. And a modern flash, is 1 frame or whatever, or 2 frames.
I know this is too boring, but the thing was that we realized we couldn't use an electronic flash to get the power, but the regular flash bulbs, if you shot 300 frames per second, then no light comes out of it. And as you saw, the whole look of it was the overexposed thingy, right? So then that's, after I think weeks of thinking about it, we realized we put a 5K bulb in the flash silvery reflectory thing that you never actually look into. And like Zack said, you turn it up and then back down again.
How did you get the comedian to go flying through the air, like into the table?
Oh, he's just on a wire.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
amazing.
the stuntman.
It looks amazing.
It's amazing how much that sequence, I mean, it's probably pretty obvious now. Like Rich Citrone is like, I'm just like, oh, look at Rich. He's fighting that guy. Oh, that's Ozzy. That's supposed to be Ozzy. That's just Rich. Just beating the crap out of Tim. So it's like, yeah, Tim, because Tim looks a lot like, he looked good. He looked like the comedian. So like I was struggling to go like, oh, is that, oh, there he is. You know, like when you try and find what shots we did with the actors and what shots we did with the doubles. Yeah, so, but it's fun. It's like, there's a really good shot, Jeffrey Dean, when they lean him back right before he pounds him into the coffee table, where he kind of makes a whoa face like that. That's pretty good. That was a good face. It was a good, and, you know, sorry. It's cool.
You're on.
Hey, when you kind of deal with the deconstruction of a genre, or you know, dealing with like, you know, these are the preconceived ideas of what a character is, and I want to challenge them. Do you put any idea or thought into, well, these are what people, you know, these are what people view these characters as. This is what my Superman is. This is what my superhero film is. Do you kind of tackle that, or do you just kind of go, you know, full steam ahead on your idea and just kind of you know, shoot out of a cannon?
Yeah, it's a tough one because, I mean, it's not, listen, when we made this movie, this is the movie. This is the graphic novel. There's no, like, the morality of this movie is the morality of the graphic novel, right? It's not, you know, it's not, we didn't embellish the morality of this film. This is what's written. You know, it's very much true to canon and true to what Alan, although Alan might have a different opinion. And that's what's awesome about him. But, you know, our intent was, anyway, to honor the book as much as we could and its point of view. Going forward from there, I guess that's where, like, you know, you're not that you're tainted, but once you open your eyes to that, it's hard to go, like, that's the point I was trying to make. It's hard to go back to an innocent view of these characters, or completely innocent. It's always, listen, in my heart of hearts, I still believe, you know, what Superman stands for, you know, as far as, you know, he's a good guy. He means well. He's not gonna fuck you over. He's not gonna do shitty stuff as best he can. You know, like, he's gonna try his best. You know, he was raised, his parents were cool. You know, they raised him right. They loved the shit out of him, and they tried the best they could. You know, they had an alien for a child. You know, it's hard. You know, he could have murdered them at any moment when he was an infant by accident. Thank God that didn't happen. Like, I can tell you, my 6-year-old would have murdered me a long time ago. In a fit of rage, when I took his blocks away or something. You can imagine. So, like, the Kents, my hat's off to them. Somehow they made it through adolescence. You know, so clearly they were good parents, you know? And so, like, you have this character that is really, as best you can, and that's the fun of it, is like, that character's confronted with a world that doesn't really care about that stuff as much as he does. You know, he wants to do the right thing. He really does. And he does know what the right thing is. He does believe in truth, justice, you know, and the American way, whatever that is, as best he can. You know, he wants that to mean something. You know, it's funny because, like, I remember when we were watching in the Singer version, in Superman Returns, he says, it's so conscious. He's like, truth, justice, and that other stuff, right? And you're like, okay, that's good. No, I get it, of course. But, like, It's an interesting thing to confront, though, right? Like when you talk about it, like truth, justice, and the American way is a thing to confront. It's confronted in this movie, you know? What happened to the American dream? Like that's in this movie, 100%. It's that idea, but then really stripped down to like, okay, let's talk about it, right? That's what it is. So, but that's what I think is amazing about Superman is he stays with it, you know? He's gonna see it through because at its heart there is something there. You know, there is a why of that. You know, that didn't happen by accident in a vacuum. He actually stood for something, and I believe in that, and I want that to mean something. You know, but at the same time, that can't mean something, right? Without the consequence of the reality of that point of view, right? Because then that doesn't mean anything. You know, then you're just, it's a joke. You know, if you say, then it's that truth, justice, and that other stuff. But if you can get to the why of his point of view, then you can actually find a way through it that is maybe meaningful, you know, that actually then can touch people and can actually allow him to exist in a way that is meaningful, and that if his belief in justice or his belief in truth then becomes transcendent because it's based on something real, not on just the words. Does that make any sense?
There we go. There's a woman with her hand up. There we go.
All right. First of all, to Snyder, Zack, and Debbie. As a huge fan, even of DC Comics, I have always been really impressed with the casting for your films. Like, you know, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Jason Momoa, they've been absolutely perfect. So for this film, Watchmen, of which Jackie Earle Haley is just the perfect version. What I want to know is, how did you know that, like in the casting process, how did you know that these actors were these iconic characters in Watchmen? And you know, and this is also, I guess, a question for Jackie as well. Like, how did you come into this role, and how did you? You know, I imagine there was a lot of pressure to try to take on a character like this, and I kind of wanted to know the process for it. All right, this is a question for Debbie.
I mean, it's a long process, and I think it starts. We have worked on every film except Dawn with these two women casting agents, Laura Kennedy and Christy Carlson. And always at the beginning of a project, even before sometimes we have a script, we start thinking about cast and talking, and we would meet with them, and then as soon as there's a script to read, they would you know, take a look at it, and we would sit and just talk, and Zack would talk specifically about who these characters, you know, were, what they meant, you know, in the world, and then we would start generating lists of, and sometimes, like, listen, I think with, like, Jason as Aquaman, like, Zack had this idea of, like, reinventing that character for someone who was, you know, really tough and physical and has a huge heart. But I think Zack's gift is how he casts and sees the world and fills it with these amazing actors. And we always go for the actors first. You know, you get a lot of pressure from the studios to put names, big names. And listen, it's great to have a great name. It helps you sell the film, but never at the expense of the acting. And, you know, there have been times where we've been offered, and I'm not going to say who, but we've been offered more money to put a particular actor And they'll be like, listen, you'll get $20 more million for your production, which we could really use. And we've been like, no, it's not right. Like, it has to be, who's the right person?
I think you did a little video.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact order of things. I was kind of looking through some notes, and if the notes are accurate, I think my agent was aware of the role, like, before you guys even mentioned me or thought of me.
I think so.
I don't think we had a script yet, even, actually, maybe. But they knew it was announced.
I think I'd somehow gotten a copy of the script, but it wasn't through, I think it was like my agent. And what we were doing is we tried to get just proactively out in front of it. So I did this audition tape and made a DVD and sent it to you guys. And I do recall that it got a good reaction at first, but then I can't remember exactly what, but I think it was kind of like the studio was kind of having you guys kind of examine like the big movie star road. So you kind of went down that road. And I remember at one point in time, I was talking to my agent. This had been going on for a while. My agent literally said, dude, let it go. Meaning like, you know, they were at one point in time, it seemed like things were just heading in a completely different direction. And my agent, just, dude, let it go. It's not going that way. They're going to do it this way. And then for whatever happened, at some point, I guess you guys just kind of reached a point where you wanted to go a different way. And then I think I always kind of felt like, even when my agent said like, just let it go, it's like I knew, well, my DV's on his desk somewhere. Maybe if it turns around, and sure enough, after, I don't know, a month or 3 or whatever it was, things kind of turned around, and I was just like literally thrilled when you guys decided to cast me in this role. It was one of the most amazing moments in my career.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, he did like a scene. I forget what scene it was. I'd have to look at. I think we have it somewhere. The DVD is still lying around. But I gotta be honest, like when I saw it, I was pretty much like, guys, honestly, like this is, what else are we gonna do? And I think we went on a journey with the with the studio through a bunch of different ideas. But it was for us, I think for Debbie and I, it was always, you know, I know your agent said let it go, but we were always like, no, it's gonna, if we have anything to say about it, that's how it's gonna go. And in the end, it was great that it worked out. And it was also cool that that Patrick ended up in the movie too, because it was just like, those guys had done Little Children. It was funny because I think we had liked both of them, and then in that year, Little Children had come out and was like, I remember we were at the Academy, we weren't at the Academy Awards, they were, and I saw you guys like on the red carpet on TV, and I was like, those are my guys, we're gonna be in my movie. And at that point, you know, there was no movie, and it was all just like, I could have been some lunatic in this living room, you know, yelling at the TV that those guys are gonna be in my movie, you know, it's like, and if you had been there, you'd be like, okay, sure, that's cool. It's like, but yeah, it worked out awesome. Cause like, and Patrick's amazing. He's like a perfect Dan, like literally a perfect Dan. I don't know how.
Like he walked right out of the comic.
He literally walked right out of the pages. So and you two together are just amazing. Yeah, I really love it. And then Billy he's just, you know, he's a dear man and like an amazing actor and just like so many. Oh, and one thing that's funny is though, we were talking about casting is Christy Carlson, who is one of the casting directors. In my mind, because we read a lot of Laurie's, right? So we read a lot of young ladies to play Laurie. And I was with her for a lot of them, sitting in the room, like, you know, but Christy would read Manhattan, you know, with the ladies. And they would always read that scene, we're all puppets, Laurie, I'm just a puppet that can see the strings. And whenever I watch the movie, I hear Christy in my head, because she's just like this deadpan version of it, which is weirdly the same way that Billy plays it. And it's kind of like this cool thing. There online, I saw a t-shirt that was out the other day that said, like, we're all puppets, Luria, I'm just about to see the strings. And I was like, I need to buy that for Christy, because that's like her, that's her. to me, anyway. It's a rant, but it's cool.
That's awesome. All right, so we have time for 2 more questions. So who do we have here? Are you handing? Oh, he's handing a mic back. Right over here, sir. Hey.
Hi, my name is Aaron. I'm very nervous right now. From the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you, God bless you for everything you do film-wise. It has inspired me. In terms of viewing the world, actually, this movie, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, has taught me to view the world more empathetically and to view the world as more inclusive. And so thank you for that, because it made me a better man and a better human being. That's what film should do, typically. So thank you for that. I also want to say, you probably have the most director's cuts out of most Hollywood directors, so congratulations on that, because that's...
I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
No, well, you definitely fight for your visions, and that's definitely inspiring to artists who want to get out there, definitely. So, hopefully that tradition continues on in the future, if you know what I mean. So,
I hope so too.
Yeah.
You like the hope for that? I guess.
Release the Snyder Cut!
The virgin.
My question is, one of the best parts of your filmmaking is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, one of the best parts of your filmmaking is the action. The fight scenes. Most blockbusters are very shaky cam, very quick cut. You stay wide and steady like Hong Kong cinema, like the Shaw Brothers, and I find that very awesome. So I was wondering, during Watchmen, and most of your fight scenes, like what movies do you look to, and how did you even develop your style of filming action scenes in general?
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I just have a particular taste for action. Is like. Particular, and Damon Caro, who's my stunt coordinator and fight choreographer, is an amazing collaborator, really shares my taste 100% when it comes to photographing fight scenes or action sequences, and he'll take my drawings and then just go nuts, and I honestly don't think it's necessarily based on, I couldn't think of another movie, but we definitely have a particular way. Like here's one of the things is that it's just time consuming, that's the problem with the style. It's hard to do, it's like it takes like an amazing editor like Bill to make it make sense, when you're doing a sequence that relies on one shot to make the next shot make sense, and then that shot relies on the next shot. It's like a puzzle or like gears. It's a harder way of making a movie, frankly, than just like hosing it down and like going, okay, if I shake the camera here, we can cut fucking to the end of the sequence and we're out. So it requires a commitment, to a way of doing it, and I think that's but it's cool, it's fun when it comes together.
You saying that this is what takes a long time to understand?
Yeah, that's what takes a long time. It's not Larry at all.
Should say that unlike most a lot of films that will just stage the action have 10 cameras on long lenses, because of this way, it's usually one camera at a time, believe it or not.
I was talking to.
That's
I remember
why I think it looks kind of better.
when I was talking to Russell Crowe when we were going to do Man of Steel, and we were just talking about the way I work. He was over at the house, and we were just talking about him doing the movie, and we were talking about the way I work, and he goes, "Well, how do you shoot?" And I'm like, "Well, I use a movie camera, and I point it at you." And he's like, "I'm used to like 10 cameras pointed at me." I was like, oh, "Okay, that's awesome too, but we're gonna just do it with the one, and hopefully it's cool." And he was really shocked by that we were just gonna use one camera. And I was like, I don't know how to it's hard to do. And I have a huge respect for Ridley Scott and these, if you can take 5 cameras and make 5 good shots, that's cool. That's amazing. That's another awesome talent. but for me, it's like, I kind of like the one is the one that seems like the best one. So I don't know, but yeah. So that it is time consuming to kind of like, because it's like you're like a bricklayer, you know. Like, okay, we got that one. What's next? Okay, we gotta go, and then like, you know, it's a whole new thing. It's not like you can't just look at the sequence and be like, okay, we hosed it down. You know, there's the 10 cameras. Yeah, there should be a scene in there, I guess, right? If we.
I've had that before too. I've had that. I mean, I think you have to have a great stunt coordinator and great choreography to pull this off. I mean, you're talking about having
the performers, you know, they gotta like.
Yeah, because if that kick where it doesn't look right, doesn't look real, you can't only speed it up so much. It's just not going to look right. So I think you had some great stunt performers, and the way you shot it looks great.
Yeah, yeah, it's tricky, you know. So like that's the thing, you know, like, and it's funny when we're shooting, it's literally feels like that a lot of the time. Like, you know, suddenly it's like 2 hours we've been working on like a shot, and we go like, okay, that's cool, it looks good, okay, we got it. Okay, what's next? And literally the next shot is like only the next punch in the sequence, and we're like, okay, what's the we got the shot where he gets punched in the face, and now we're gonna get the shot where he gets punched in the face again. And they're like, okay, but it's an entirely different setup that's gonna take another 2 hours for us to do. So there is a dedication to the process that you have to like be all in on, you know, because otherwise you just, you know, you'd go like, you know what, let's just film it and it's fine, whatever. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, great insight. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, so Cameron, wrap us up.
Last best.
Last best. There we go.
He's here. He's here.
I did that on purpose.
He's gonna close. He's a closer. Let's see what this is. Everybody ready?
He's a film student here.
He's a film student. So it's gonna be.
Pressure's on. So Zach, you're a very visual director, and so this is a question for you and Larry. Can you kind of just talk about the relationship between like DP and director?
Yeah.
How much? I mean, yeah, obviously it depends.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, look, I've known Larry for quite a long time. He and I think the first film we shot together was the World War I movie, Death and Beauty. I believe, was that the first one? And that was our first film. It was in our basics, our Super 8 Basics of Film class in this school right here. I think, by the way, it premiered in this theater, and I had my Super 8 projector on a board between two of these chairs, and it was projected in this theater right here. And I had to push on my boom box. We had boom boxes. So that was a long time ago. I had a thing called a boom box, okay, that I owned, and I thought it was pretty awesome. So I pushed play on my boom box, and some requiem, like World War I, crazy, you know. So that was this World War I movie that I had like coaxed Larry into shooting for me. It was me. I was half the cast. It was John T. Davis and some girl that I met at the gym. And that was...
Who dies,
yeah. So it was cool. And I think you did the makeup effects too, right? You did the bullet wound.
I did.
Yeah, because Larry has experience in prosthetics as well.
But this was Basics 1. Do you still have that class?
No.
Okay, well, Basics 1 is Super 8, but we have to say that a lot of people didn't take that class seriously, and I would say it's because they're waiting to do, you know, either shoot a video or 16mm. So is it fair to say a couple of people kind of didn't take the class seriously? It was every major.
It's fair to say.
But then some people still have
it was like Clay Stopp took it seriously. And I took it serious. I thought it was like a heart attack. It was the most serious thing I could imagine.
Well, he dug the trenches in his backyard with a backhoe, and like almost kicked out of your apartment, I think.
Yeah, no, I had told these people, they were like actually a friend of ours. I said, hey, is there any way, I'm trying to shoot a student film, and I need to like dig up the backyard, or I need some ground. And it was, they were like, yeah, sure, we don't, our grass is dead, so it was cool. And I was like, yeah, I'll leave it really like so you can plant grass. So it'll be like it's a win for you. And the guy came home from work, and I had dug the backyard, this guy's house, like literally 6 feet deep and 4 feet wide and like 40 feet long. And he was like, what the fuck? Are you serious? Like, this is insane. And but the thing that what happened was he couldn't really stop us. So we shot the movie. It was like, how many? I think it was like 2 days. I don't forget how long we shot it. Say 2 days. So we shot it, and then I filled it in, right? But the guy was so freaked out by how much digging we had done. He kept calling me, going like, hey man, can you come over and take my trash out? Because like, you really dug up my backyard. And I go, I know, but I fixed that, and it's cool now. And he goes, yeah, but it was you dug it up so much that you need to come take my trash out too. And could you like wash my towels? And like, my dishes are dirty. And I was like, I'm not your indentured servant. I just freaking dug up your backyard. I know it was extreme, but it's done now. And he just could not. He was not cool. Like, he couldn't. Like months later, he kept going like, you really dug up my backyard. I was like, I know, it's cool, it's fine. I only broke one pipe, for God's sake.
There's a good moral to the story. I don't know if you know it or not.
Never let film students in your house.
That's definitely the takeaway. I heard about this movie through the current president of the school, who said he heard from the guy who was president at the time that it ended up on his desk, your movie. And they were just like, who are these guys? What the hell? Keep an eye on them. This is freaking awesome because nobody.
Oh really? Oh, that's cool.
No one else was taking it seriously, and the whole story got out about the trenches, and they're just like, "That's what we're looking for." Around
That's good.
here.
No, it worked out.
Yeah. No,
yeah. So then, so we did that one, which was relatively inexpensive, comparatively, I think. But then we, made Batman vs Superman, so that was more expensive.
So how about a big thank you for this amazing panel?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming.
Awesome.